judo has a very distinct set of movements. It has a very distinct style. And when people sit here and whine and go, well, why can't we do double legs? Why can't we do singles? Why can't we do knee bars? Why can't we do ankle locks? Why can't we do neck cranks? Well, if judo has everything, then it's nothing.
Hey guys, Dave Lowshelter, Dadbod Judo. Hey, we're back on the podcast, and I got Brian and I got Lucky. So hey guys, what's going on today?
Nothing much. I'm here with my fellow Irishman, Lucky. I'm one of those fake Irishmen. I'm one of those I'm like kind of a little bit Irish, only on Irish on St. Patty's Day kind of Irish. But you know,
there
I
you
try.
go. We'll take it. It doesn't matter. We'll take it.
Well, hey, listen. We talked about this offline, but we wanted to bring it to everybody. We want to talk about leg grabs today in judo. They're coming back, and I want to get some information on the leg grabs. I know Brian has some opinions on it. I know Lucky has some opinions, and I have my opinion. So we're going to share our opinions on leg grabs today on the Dadbod Judo podcast. So, all right, guys. So give me, what's going on with leg grabs?
All right, who's going first?
I want to say something real quick. So leg grabs are coming back is what you're saying, right? So I want to know, why did they disappear in the first place?
Okay. Okay. Well, do you want me to go with that, Dave? You want me to respond to that?
Yeah, good.
Well, so what's weird about that is that the IJF has never given an official reason. They never have. And that's what's interesting about the whole thing. And there's so many theories. Most of them are stupid. The big one, the dumbest theory is that a bunch of European wrestlers, particularly Eastern European wrestlers like Russians, Georgians, and things, were just coming in and dominating the judo players, just shooting blast doubles and high crotches and this and that. That's not true. There's no evidence to support that, like, there was this sudden, just out of nowhere, just rush of Eastern European grapplers and wrestlers that entered into judo and just started dominating. There's just no evidence of that. So that is just a stupid theory that is not grounded in any truth. So that's not the reason why. The probably the most realistic theory out there is the fact that judo was afraid of getting kicked out of the Olympics the way that wrestling did for a brief period of time, and they wanted to differentiate themselves from wrestling. They wanted to make it more exciting because they knew that if you keep the leg grabs, there is just no way you can sit there and you can splice it any way you want and try and come up with any type of crazy mathematical formula you want. But at the end of the day, there is no way to put leg grabs on the table and not force the sport into a low crouching hips back type of position. If any time a grappler is in danger of having his legs grabbed and it could cost him the match, he is going to have his legs low and his hips back. You just can't avoid that. If leg grabs are on the table at any capacity, that is where the athletes are going to go. That is the position that they are going to take, at least to a much greater degree than if they're not on the table. So the probably the most common theory is that the IJF said, we need to make sure that we're not like wrestling. We're not just squatting on the ground. We're not just diving at each other's ankles. We need to make sure that we are standing upright and we are launching people through the air, because that's exciting and that's going to get ratings. Diving at people's ankles is not. And I think when wrestling got kicked out of the Olympics, I think that was the knee-jerk reaction from the IJF. That's my opinion.
Very, very interesting. I just feel like from the people that like John Danaher, obviously one of the greatest BJJ teachers, but he talks about the elegance of seeing the big throw, the big moment, the arms and the legs go flying through the air, and just to your point, like the fact that there's a chance for you going for my legs, the body posture just naturally like comes down, and that would essentially kills the beauty of judo.
Yeah, absolutely. It has to. There's and that's why I get so annoyed with these guys. And I love my fellow judoka, I really do, but like it's mostly these guys in the West that are just like, oh, we got to bring back leg grabs. Well, why can't we do ankle picks? Why can't we do blast doubles and stuff like that? And it's just like, I don't know, guys. It's like, for me, and this may sound like a little silly, and some people think this is stupid. I honestly don't like saying that leg grabs were banned because they technically weren't. I hit leg grabs all the time when I go for like sumigaeshis, when I go for like yoko wakaras, and I go for like these drop under kind of sacrifice throws. Almost, I don't want to say almost always, but most of the time, if I don't hit it, if it doesn't land in ippon or wazari, it almost always results in some sort of scramble where we're on the ground. I can't tell you how many times somebody rolls over top of me, they're on their knees, I roll to my stomach, and I immediately grab a leg, and then I drive them over. Sometimes it's a single, sometimes it's a double, and then I always work my way for the pin. So there are ways where you can incorporate these techniques in what's called the newaza position, which, you know, most of our listeners know what newaza is. It's just the ground technique. I use leg grabs all the time in ground technique, and I just all the belly aching and all the whining, like it's just so annoying. It's just like, guys, get over it. Like, learn, like, understand that judo, it has an identity, and getting and limiting the leg grabs to just newaza has really, I think, helped cement judo's identity. Like, if you took the gis and you took the mat in the venue out of it, and I just saw like a street fight, like, I could tell if somebody was trained in judo, because judo has a very distinct set of movements. It has a very distinct style. And when people sit here and whine and go, well, why can't we do double legs? Why can't we do singles? Why can't we do knee bars? Why can't we do ankle locks? Why can't we do neck cranks? Well, if judo has everything, then it's nothing. Then there's nothing special about it. It's just, it just becomes this martial art that's just like a jack of all trades, master of none. And I personally don't like that. I like the fact that all these martial arts have different areas of expertise, and I don't want judo to get diluted. I love the fact that we are the big throw people. If you want big throws, you come to us. If I want to learn heel hooks and knee bars and stuff, I'll go to, you know, some Danaher trained BJJ guy, you know, do some nogi or something like that. If I want to learn ankle picks and high crotches and doubles and singles and pins, like, I'm gonna go to a wrestling club. And so that's what I think is cool. But like, everybody, so many people in judo want judo to have everything. And if it does everything, then it's nothing. It may as well just be MMA or just whatever. I mean, I don't know. I like the fact that, you know, that judo is kind of what it is right now.
Yeah, you
And
know,
I'm the minority in that, and I know I'm the minority in that.
well, you know, the thing is like it's really like they did with freestyle wrestling too, is it's what they want to feature, right? Okay, so
Yeah.
you take away leg grabs, and now you're featuring, you know, the bigger throws, the Uchimata, Harai Goshis, Sasasura Kamiyashis, Ochigaris, all that, and it's more classical judo. And so it's kind of interesting, like with freestyle wrestling, they well, actually with collegiate wrestling, you know, a takedown now is not 2 points, it's 3 points. So
Is it really?
yeah, they're awarding
When did they change that?
the last year or so.
Wait, is that in freestyle or folk style?
No, it's in folk style, collegiate wrestling.
So in college, okay.
College, yeah. So they want, so the theory would be that, and don't, I mean, you know, put your comments below if you know more than I do, please do. But I would have to guess that they're awarding something that is more dynamic. You know, the takedowns are more dynamic than, you know, riding time, for example. So for judo, you know, if you're looking at, you know, leg grabs, you're to your point, Brian, I think you're watering down the big throws, because then you have, like, you don't have as many, you know, classical, you know, huge big Uchimata, Harai Goshis, you know, the Osotogaris, you know, all those things that really show judo off as a classical style and dynamic sport. So I you know, I grew up with leg grabs. Like that was the one thing that back in the 80s and 90s, like when I was competing, that's what you had to learn. And guess what? You had to learn how to defend against. And it's a good point that it was a different, I come from a wrestling background too, so it was an easy transition for me. It was actually better because I had wrestling and judo, so I was able to do both because I trained both at the same time. And so, like, but it was a different style. Plus the gis were shorter back then too, People would shorten up their gis. The rules were different with gi,
Yeah.
so that it really was more wrestling style because you really couldn't get your grip like you can today. So, the sport has really changed over a couple decades or a few decades. But I think to your point, like, what do we want to really fucking focus on to really kind of show like what judo is? So I'm really perplexed, frankly, that these leg grabs are coming back. I know the fluency of the sport and everything.
I don't think they are. I'm sorry, I don't
And
mean to cut you off. I don't think they are.
you know what? Because who's bringing them back?
Well, from what I understand, the Kodokan is bringing them back, but well, actually, let me correct that. The Kodokan isn't actually bringing them back because the Kodokan never got rid of them. Like, if you look at the Kodokan Cup always had leg. They never went away. So people are getting all, they're getting all worked up and all excited because like Kodokan's bringing back leg grabs. No, dude, the Kodokan is only bringing back leg grabs for the All Japan Championships in the open weight. So even the All Japan Kodokan championships, they're not bringing back leg grabs. They're only bringing it back for the open weight championship. I'm sorry, you probably hear my daughter crying in the background. But so they are only bringing it back for, and again, I keep saying bring back, but they're really not bringing them back because they never really left. Because you could always do them in the Kodokan Cup. So I think people have this really kind of misinterpreted. It's something that just got like spun up online somewhere because they're bringing it back for the open weight division in the All Japan. But I don't know. I think people are making a lot to do about nothing, in my opinion.
Like for Lucky, in your competitions, you are hitting double legs. You're hitting, ankle picks and things like that. I mean, those are techniques that you need to be able to like compete in jiu-jitsu. And that's all part of the judo, throwing style. It's coming from like, the rote gari, the double legs, the ankle picks, the single leg drives or whatever. Not so much the pickups, I don't think, but yeah, maybe the pickups, depending on how close you get. But it's like, that's all part of it. I mean, and you need those techniques.
Yeah, you definitely need the techniques, but I feel like just because of the nature of judo, like I talk about the last 10 seconds in judo, a guy gets a hold of you, and the minute he's got two hands on you, he's going for that huge ippon, and then they go into newaza. It's more like a secondary attacking chance, but they're really setting up like a game. One is to make that big throw, and I think that what Brian's, when Brian says about the wrestlers coming in, it's almost like forcing judo into the B game, because I think I may be wrong when I say that, but judo is predominantly known for the big throws. Like we said, newaza is a part of judo, but it's kind of not as known as the throwing part. Like, so I think some people are actually surprised sometimes to hear that judo actually has a ground game.
They
like,
are, yeah.
They're actually surprised. Like, well, wait a minute, that's jujitsu. No, there's actually a part of judo that is ground game. Travis Stevens, as an example, was very good at the newaza, but I feel like the double legs, because of the wrestlers, it's taken judo from its A game, which is like on the big throw, the takedown, the throw, and it takes them into that like scramble, messy ground stuff. And I think that you only have like 10 seconds. Is it 10 seconds to submit your opponent when you go to newaza?
There's no exact time limit. So it basically the general sort of unspoken rule of thumb is you got about 3 to 5 seconds of stall time. Like if you're on the ground and the guy that you're attacking basically doesn't move or doesn't like let you move him for about 3 to 5 seconds. If the referee sees about 3 to 5 seconds of no one moving, they're standing you up. They're standing you back up. So, and again, that's not even really a hard and fast rule. That's just kind of like an unspoken, kind of general approximation, because it really is kind of up to the referee's discretion, about whether or not, you're getting stood up or not. But the general rule is like, 3 to 5 seconds. If no one's moving, you're getting up. So, yeah.
So as long as you're progressing, that's 5 second clock is kind of like resetting.
Yeah, Yeah, it really is. I mean, I've seen, it's not often, but I mean, I've seen, scrambles and progressions on the ground in IJF tournaments that are probably close to a minute, maybe even more, you know what I
Wow.
mean?
Wow.
And maybe not more, I don't know, but right around a minute. But I've seen some that are close to a minute, where, it's just, one guy moves, the other guy, gets out, then the other guy gets on top, and then he's trying to escape a pin, and it was kind of a back and forth there. Now that doesn't happen often because
Mm.
usually in a tournament, it's if you're the guy getting thrown to the ground and someone's on top of you trying to pin you or choke you, it's usually in your best interest to just turtle up,
Right.
keep him from moving you, and then get the stand up, because otherwise you can waste a lot of energy down there and you don't get a single point.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to
Yeah.
say a minute of judo scrambling is way
Mhm.
different from a minute of jujitsu scrambling
Yeah.
because of the nature of what you're trying to do. There's an urgency in judo, whereas in jujitsu you can kind of let it marinate and kind of work, and it's
Yeah.
more little flowing. Where judo's more like wrestling. It's more of an explosive. That would be an explosive minute of scrambling in judo, I'd imagine. It wouldn't be very like jujitsu is very like you can sort of take breaks. Judo, I don't think you can take breaks.
Right, because you can be defeated with a pin,
Right.
so whereas in, like, there are situations where in jujitsu where, okay, if a guy has you in side control, you can afford to just kind of hang out, catch your breath, and go,
Yes.
okay, how am I going to get out of this? In judo, you don't have that option. When he's got you
Right.
down there, you got to get out quick. You got 10 seconds, and then he's got a wazari on you, and then another 10 seconds, it's over, you lost. So you have to work out of that position. You don't have time to relax, be calm, and try and work a way out of it. You got to hustle.
Hey guys, I got a new coaching system that I developed. It's called the Mind Coach System. It's a 7-step process to help you reach your peak potential. We talk about dreams, we talk about goals, we talk about strategy, we talk about execution, mindset, and then reaching your peak potential. By using all of those, we can get you there, and we can develop a plan for you to be able to find your goals and to reach those and reach your peak potential. So click the link below, check it out, contact me, and then we can go from there.
Well, we were talking about, like, sort of like the scrambles in judo versus BJJ, um which that came off the heels of me kind of talking about how, I do utilize leg grabbing techniques on the ground. And I'll be honest, I mean, I don't see that much of a huge distinction. I mean, I just, like I said, I don't like using the phrase leg grabs were banned, because they weren't. They were banned in Tachiwaza. And I think if you want to grab legs once you get into Newaza and start using ankle picks and singles and doubles and things like that to get your opponent into position where you can pin them, I mean, I still think that those techniques do kind of live on in the Newaza realm. And I realize some people are going to think that's ridiculous, and that's fine. I think it's ridiculous to have a martial art that is supposed to specialize in the big throw, and then to try and implement leg grabbing techniques that are inevitably going to force the match into a low position where you can't launch someone with a big throw. I would, and the other thing is too, is like these new rules that they're saying, it's just going to make it harder to explain. You know what I mean? It makes it so more complicated. Now they're trying to say, like, oh well, because this is what the Kodokan's doing in open weight, like I said before, with the All Japan. They're trying to say, okay, you can grab the leg, but it can only be with one hand, and you have to have a grip on the gi, and you can't just but you can't just charge right in with the one hand. You have to have the grip, so you can really only grab one leg, and you have to have the grip on the top. Dude, it just makes it more complicated. It's so much easier to say, look, in judo, my goal is to throw you on your back, okay? And if I can't do that, I can get you to the ground, and then I can start grabbing your legs and going for chokes and arm bars. That's it. That's the game, right? But I,
Okay,
I just,
so
I just,
yeah,
yeah.
but okay, so let me push back on that. Just let me argue the point. So there are throws that are done like Teguruma. You
Mhm,
lift under and you under you lift them up and you throw them over, right?
mhm.
And that's where the big throws happen with that too, right?
Yeah,
The room is one where you're grabbing the leg and you're lifting and you're throwing, and that's a legit throw. When I was competing, we were doing a lot of ankle picks with that too.
Kabisu Gaeshi.
Yeah. Okay. Is that,
Kibikudashi.
yeah. So you're throwing that way. So that's a legit throw. That's a leg pick, right?
It is. I mean, and I mean, yeah,
Well, Morote Gari is a throw.
it
Like
is.
that's a throw. So
Yeah.
they're all leg grabs. I mean, you're grabbing a leg and throwing.
Hmm.
Going back to your point, if you put those in and they become dominant, then they water down the big throws because now they want like one hand here, and then you have to like have a grip first. You can't attack off the grip on the legs. It's what I'm hearing is the way I understand it, and I don't know, I haven't read anything about it, but it sounds like you just can't attack off the grip and grab the legs. Is that
Yeah.
accurate?
It sounds like, and again, this is what the Kodokan is doing in the All Japan open weight division.
Mhm.
And again, I say this because I don't believe the IJF is going to do it. I could be wrong, but I don't think they are, and I hope they don't. But yes, to your point, yes, what the Kodokan is doing for the open weight division in the All Japan is they are saying that you have to have a grip the entire time on the lapel or the gi or the upper body. It's basically like the bear hug rule, where like you can't just go from not having a grip and then just charging in for the bear hug. You have to take a grip first, and then you can kind of attack with the bear hug. It's the same thing here, where you have to have a grip first, and then you can attack with the leg. But then it gets kind of even more complicated because you can't. You have to always, from what I understand, you have to always have that upper body grip. So even if I have the upper body grip, like I have like a traditional, I call it the 1882 grip, just a traditional sleeve lapel grip, right? And then I let go of the sleeve grip, the surite hand, and then I reach for the leg. I can't let go with my lapel hand and then grab the leg and do like a double leg. I can't do that. I have to always have the grip up top. And again, I just think if you want to grow this sport, you have to make it easy to explain, easy to understand, user friendly, and like to me that just makes it more complicated. It's just like another kind of caveat that you have to explain, and then it's just like, and I don't think it helps the sport. I really don't. It's like, you know, because like I said, there's just no way that you can have those types of techniques on the table and have any grappler whose legs could potentially be in danger, and if they get grabbed, could cost him the match. There's no way he's not going to squat lower and put his hips back. And then you're not going to get the big Uchimatas. You're not going to get the big Harai Goshis or the Sionagis because these guys are going to be squatted low with their hips back.
Right.
There's just no way around it.
I feel like the dawn of mixed martial arts changed the platform for everything because
Yeah.
like back in the day before mixed martial arts, like you could clearly say judo was probably the most superior martial arts. The truest form of martial arts was judo. Then you had like boxing, was your stand up. And if you'd have talked to somebody back in the day about who was the toughest guy on the planet, they did mention guys like Mike Tyson, Lennox Lewis.
Yeah.
But then mixed martial arts comes into it, right? And all of a sudden, you could have a wrestler to take Mike Tyson down, and it nullifies everything that made you believe that he was the toughest man on the planet. If he gets taken down, he's like a turtle on his back. And I think that, like with a mixed martial arts variety, I think that there's a few techniques being wrestling that when you shoot at somebody at 100% effort, it nullifies a lot of the tradition and thing because you're going to end up on the ground. It's going to take the judo player. It's going to take the judo player to the ground, and thank you. And once you get taken to the ground, it takes away the purity of it. Like when you would never have fathomed a boxer going against an MMA guy. You would just never have conceived that. But there are techniques in mixed martial arts that makes a boxer look pretty damn amateur.
Oh yeah,
right?
look at James Toney versus Randy Couture.
Right.
Yeah.
So say I think that the judo rules apply well when you're dealing with traditional judo practitioners. But then you got these guys that are starting to like blend the lines, and they're starting to like, well, it's not just enough to know judo. You just have to know a little bit of wrestling. You have to know a little bit of jujitsu. You have to know a little bit of striking. And I think what happens is that you get all these guys crossing over to different martial arts and trying to short circuit the tradition. Like, we all know to become good at judo, it takes years and
Oh, yeah.
years and years and years. Or you can do well in judo by becoming pretty good at double leg takedown. And that could be your one trick
Yeah.
pony. And you could beat guys that are better at judo, but there's a move that kind of cuts through the bullshit. And the reason why it does that is because the goal is to get you on the ground so you can start the fight. Whereas in judo, if somebody gets taken down with a double leg, it's kind of like we want the big hip throw, and we want the elegance of it, and what it's known for historically is those two legs flying over someone's body. And I just feel like when mixed martial arts come in, it started blurring the lines. Because have you ever like you do jiu-jitsu now? You still Steel City?
No, I mean, I drop in there every now and again, but yeah, I've done some jujitsu.
So
Yeah.
even a jiu-jitsu guy, when he goes against a new white belt that comes into the gym, he never does as well against the new guy that walks in the door, because the new guy's movement patterns are not like, oh, a blue belt moves like this, a purple belt moves like that. But a guy comes off the street, it's very spazzy.
Yeah.
And it feels like it's almost harder to work with him because he's not giving you the responses you need. So it's kind of like mixed martial arts, in a sense, messed up the purity of all the singular martial arts. Like they say, like if you have a cup of water and you drop one little dab of ink in it, it
It's still
contaminates
underwater.
the whole.
Yeah,
It contaminates the whole thing, and it's just one of those things. Like, once mixed martial arts come in, you can't really see judo or boxing or anything for what it really is, because it's a specialized thing. It's like I'm a union worker. I'm a boilermaker, right? But people don't know the difference between boilermakers and fitters. People don't know the difference between boilermakers and iron workers. But iron workers hang iron. Fitters fit, and boilermakers we weld. But to your point, you said, well, if judo's everything, it's really not a specialized area. Well, if I can hang iron, then what's the point of having an iron worker? There's specialized areas where we all excel at, but we have to have enough differential to have like for it to be different. You know what I mean? Like, if judo does everything, then it's not really specializing in anything.
Yeah.
And the throw is the specialty.
I agree 100%. And I couldn't agree more with like the influence of MMA, and particularly in the West, is that, everybody, especially in the judo world, I mean, I really don't see this that much in BJJ, and definitely not in like wrestling. Like, I don't hear anybody in NCAA wrestling, any varsity level wrestling, any folk style wrestling anywhere. I don't hear a single person going, well, back in the day, we evolved from catch wrestling, and they had heel hooks and neck cranks, and why can't we bring back arm locks and neck cranks to, collegiate wrestling? Nobody is saying that. Like, so, but yet for some reason in judo, we have to sit there and go, well, 15 years ago, we were allowed to hit blast doubles and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, now granted, I understand that's probably because, the change in judo was much, much more recent than, when catch wrestling became scholastic wrestling.
Right.
So I understand that, so take that statement with a grain of salt. But it's just like, I just, like I said, I get so tired of just like the belly aching, and like mostly in the West, at least as far as I know, because I know some Russian guys, Japanese guys, Korean guys, and like nobody complains about this, like in that part of the world, as far as I know, in my experience. It's all these guys in the West that are just like, oh, why can't we do ankle picks? Why can't we do? It's like, dude, like, okay, so I'm gonna be careful here because I love this guy. It's probably my favorite podcast, aside from the Dadbod Judo podcast, of course. but Shintaro Higashi, I love his podcast. The dude is an absolute legend, and I don't want to sound like I'm like bad mouthing him at all, because he's awesome. I love him.
Yeah.
Okay, but his recent podcast about this hot topic about leg grabs, he's in there talking about how, like, oh, wouldn't it be great if like we could bring in more wrestlers, and because if we had leg grabs, then more wrestlers would come in, and more. It's like, dude, no wrestler is sitting around there going, like, no wrestling committee or anything like that is sitting around going, hey, let's change our rules so more judo guys can show up. No, they don't care about that. Like, why is it this thing in like the West where like we as judo players feel the need to like cater to other martial arts? Like, well, if we just add this rule, more jiu-jitsu guys will show up, and if we just add this rule, more wrestlers will show up. Like, why do we, like, can we just stop with that? And like, can we just like let judo have its identity? Like, again, I love Shintaro, but he was there talking about how like, oh, well, wouldn't it be great if one day we had knee bars? It's like, no, it wouldn't be great. That would be stupid. That would be stupid because, like, again, what are we supposed to do? We supposed to just let judo have everything? Like, let's just add punches and kicks while we're at it. You
Right,
know what I
right.
mean? It's like, okay, so then it's just MMA. It's nothing. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Let it have a specialty. Let the martial arts community have a specialty so we can have these cool cultural exchanges, like, so to speak, you know, where it's like, if a jujitsu guy, like I said before, if a jujitsu guy wants to like learn some throws, cool, come to the judo club. If the judo guy wants to learn some leg locks and some cool submissions and guard sweeps, he can go to the jujitsu guy. If the judo guy and the jujitsu guy want to learn some like some blast doubles and learn some really cool pins and reversals, they can go to a wrestling club. Like, I'm so sick of this thing that exists in judo where like everybody's so greedy and they just want judo to have everything. It's like that episode of South Park where like all the kids all pick their own superpower, and like Cartman, being the fat little a-hole that he is, like he was the only one that was just like, oh, I want all the powers. And they're like, no, Cartman, you get one. And then Cartman's like, no, my power is to have all the powers. And they're like, damn it, Cartman. And like, because you ruined the game, right? Because you ruined the game, because the whole point of the game that the kids in South Park were trying to play was that like, hey, I have my thing that I do, you have your thing, and then together we all kind of complement each other, and we have this cool little culture where we all help each other out with all of our like abilities. And then like Cartman, the little brat, had to ruin it by just being like, I do everything, you guys. Like, that's what they want judo to be, and it's so stupid.
Brian,
Yeah.
do you think that do you think like the reason why people are getting into judo today have changed as well? Because I would imagine you've been doing judo for how long?
Dude, probably about 13, 14 years.
And then Dave's been doing it for probably 30s plus,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So the reason why you guys got into judo at the time was, you know, maybe the love of a martial arts. You wanted to get into some of the discipline and stuff. But I think today people aren't necessarily getting into judo just because they want to be an Olympian. I feel like the older guys got into it through hook or by crook because they wanted to learn a martial arts. But I feel like the reason for people to do judo now has also changed. It's like it's like everybody wants to be an MMA fighter, but so they want to learn how to throw and but back in the day, the people that just wanted to learn judo were let me say it another way. You were just telling me about South Park. Imagine the show Naked and Afraid, right?
Yeah.
And they get to bring one tool. One person brings an axe, and one person brings a canteen to collect water because they feel like that one tool they can do the most with and get the best results, right?
Yeah.
Now imagine someone comes up and says, well, I want a knife, a pot, a pan, a rope, a poncho. They've just killed the essence of survival.
Yes.
Because you've got it all.
There's no point to it anymore. There's no point to the game. Yeah.
So people want to see how well you can do with a limited amount of things and make it a specialty as perfect. And like that guy survived with a knife. Like that person survived with a tin can. One tool and they survived. I feel like there's a little bit of that. Like judo people don't necessarily want to learn to strike. They want to say, you know, we believe at our best game and when the time is right. Judo in its essence of itself is the most superior art. And that's why we do it, because we believe it's the superior.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And I don't want to take up the whole time. I mean, obviously, if Dave wants to chime in here, but you know, I couldn't agree more. And I just don't want to see judo, and I don't think it will. But but it seems like if a lot of people, a lot of big voices in the West have their way, I think they would just rather judo just look like submission grappling, so they could have every tool. But like to your point about MMA, I miss the days when it was like, you know, a wrestler versus, you know, a boxer. And I'm not even talking about necessarily UFC 1. I mean, we can go back as recently as like, you know, back when you had like, you know, Khabib versus Conor. You know what I mean? It was like that was like a boxer wrestler type of thing. But now I feel like, and that wasn't even that long ago, but I feel like now it's just like all these guys kind of do a little bit of everything. I mean, you have I mean, yeah, you have Chimaev, who's a phenomenal wrestler. You have Bo Nickel, who's a great wrestler.
Yep.
Kayla Harrison's in there now. We obviously know what she does, you know, with her judo. But like outside of a small handful, you don't have that many specialists anymore. I just feel like MMA has just kind of just become its own thing now. You know what I mean? And so there's just, you don't see the specialists. And I guess that's just what I like. I don't know why I like that, but I like seeing a specialist, and I don't want to see judo lose its identity as this specialty martial art where, where as a judo guy, when I walk into a room, and maybe this is an ego thing, and I don't mean for it to sound egotistical, but I know when I walk into a judo or like a jujitsu club, if I stop into Steel City and I'm like, hey, I've done judo for 14 years or whatever, they're gonna be like, oh, cool, that guy can teach me some throws. That's
Yes.
the guy. But if we do ankle picks, and we do knee bars and heel hooks, and we do neck cranks, and we throw all this crap in there that all these guys in the West want us to, then we're not specialists in anything. Like I said, we
Right.
may as well throw punches and kicks there and just be MMA fighters that do a little bit of everything. I'd rather be a specialist. That's just me.
Yeah, and if you think about like what judo has in it, this is the competitive side. There's a specialization, and with competitive, there's certain rules and regulations and a scope of techniques that you could do in competition. By studying judo itself, it does have all the other stuff. Traditionally, the
Yes.
atemiwaza, which is striking, the
Yeah.
jujitsu, which is the newaza, some of the katas have like the kimi no kata has like a sword and knives and
Yeah.
all the other stuff, right? So historically, it has, if you look at judo as a exercise and as a study of a martial art, yeah, you're going to be exposed to all that stuff the more you study it. If you have the instructor and training and the wherewithal. So I think the differentiation here is the difference between, okay, what do we do as a competitor? National, international, local, whatever, and what are the rules, and what's the scope of the rules that we fight. And then there's also the study of judo, which does have all the other stuff, which isn't competitive. It's just an exercise and just learning martial arts and self-improvement. So I think, like, to your point, Brian, does it have everything? Yeah, it kind of does.
Yeah.
If you think about it, because a lot of other sports have used judo in a lot of different ways. It's just the fact that just like things have evolved to a certain point to the MMA and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and things like that. So yeah, do we want to keep the sport in such a way where there's two things. There's keeping it where it is and evolving it. So the question will be, how do you evolve a sport like judo? Because it has changed, and everything's going to change in some ways. And,
Yeah.
and guess what? Things, history repeats itself. So before it was like you learn all these leg grabs and pickups and things, and then they take them out. They shorten the gis, they lengthen the gis, they lengthen the matches to 3 minutes to 5 minutes, and there's
And now they're back to 4.
Now they're back to 4. Now it's
Yeah.
going 4. So things are changing as they go. The question is like, are they changing for the better or worse? And how do you adjust? And how do you, as a competitor, adjust to the changes? And if you're a competitor long enough, you have to make that shift. If you're a double leg expert back in the 90s, the 80s and 90s, and they take it away, well, you better learn something else. Like you have to evolve judo. So judo is evolving, but also the way we're evolving as judo players also evolve. You should be a different judo player from year 5 to year 10 to year 15, year 20. You should, and then when you get to a certain point where you really can't do that competitive stuff anymore, what kind of like player, instructor, or person are you? So I think part of this is like, if we look at this as just like a microcosm of like the sport itself, is it good for whom? Like, who's it good for? Are we trying to like make it look good for as a aesthetic spectator, right? Is it good for the spectator? Is a good spectator sport? Well, they took away all the gripping because everyone was like masterful grip fighters back in the day, and they had to change that a little bit because that got kind of boring. Because I was like, what are they doing? Because there wasn't any throws. Then they kind of like they make the gis bigger, and they say, hey, let's do bigger throws. Well, if you do bigger throws, it's much more exciting. Okay, what about the point system? But what's a koka? Like, what's a yuko? Like, they took that out. So now it's Wazari and Ippon because they want the bigger throws. So they've developed the sport to a point where it's like how does it look to a spectator? And what's the sport all about in terms of that? Because now everything's very aesthetic, right? So if you're bringing back something that's not as aesthetic, because that was the reason why we made the change, is that the right thing to do? And that would be the argument, right?
Yeah. Yeah, my answer would be no, it's not the right thing to do. And yeah, and I hear your point. That yeah, I mean, if you want to get technical, yes, judo already does have punches and kicks and even, you know, weapons and stuff. If you're talking about using judo for self-defense. But I mean, let's be honest. I mean, what percentage of judo clubs do you think are doing a temiwaza? Like if you had to guess, like one, two, I mean, any of them? Are any doing them?
Yeah.
It's probably none, because it's, yeah, it's so dominated by the sport.
Unless,
And also,
I mean, unless you're taking a test for a high rank, whatever,
yeah,
right? It's like if you're going for like, you know, a 4th degree black belt or 5th degree black belt or whatever the case may be, you're going to be doing some of the other advanced katas which have that in them.
yeah,
Not
yeah.
gonna
But
be breaking-
outside of that,
the last
yeah.
time, when's the last time you broke an ice block or a couple boards in judo practice?
Never, never. But you know, so yeah, I mean, I understand that stuff, like, you know, technically exists, but as far as the judo identity, I mean, the reality is that it is shaped by the sport. And I think the same thing is true with BJJ. The same thing, you know, is true with well, I guess of course it's true with wrestling, because that's all wrestling is. There's really no self-defense component to wrestling, even though arguably wrestling, you could argue, is probably the best martial art for self-defense. They don't think of themselves as self-defense artists, or really even martial artists, even though they are. So that's kind of interesting. But you know, I think that when it comes to changing the rules and things like that, because I hear what you're saying, that yes, things are going to change and they are going to continue to change as far as the rules. I think the focus should not be on trying to bring back leg grabs and making the rules and the explanation of judo more complicated. I think the emphasis should be on simplifying it, like by doing things like, look, the only way that you score ippon or wazari, okay, is a throw to the back or a throw to the side. Directly to the back, ippon; directly to the side, wazari. Okay. And then here's another thing you could do. You could just limit the pins to 10 seconds. 10-second pin, ippon. That's it. No wazari for pinning. It's just a pin, a submission. 10 seconds, you're done. Okay. Don't do 10 seconds for wazari, another 10 seconds, another wazari. Then if it's the full 20, it's wazari, I've set to ippon. No, that's too confusing. Just stop that. 10 seconds, pin, you're done. Okay. And then like, when you have like the bridging they call that ippon. If you throw and then somebody bridges their neck, okay, don't call that ippon, just hansakumake, because now if you have to start explaining all these different ways someone can score ippon, it makes it more confusing. Or how about when they put their arms behind their back to try and catch themselves? We call that, what is that? That's a wazari too, right? Is that a wazari? If they catch themselves, I think it is. But like, get rid of that stuff and just make that a penalty. Don't give it an extra score. Wazari is a throw to the side, a throw to the back, is ippon, and then that's it. 10-second pin, that's it. Chokehold, armbar, like that's it. Like, stop with all the other like different like hansakumakes that you're now calling ippons. Make it simple. All right, that's what I think that the IJF should be focused on. Not bringing back leg grabs that are just gonna, the explanations are gonna make it more complicated. That's just what I would rather see. I would rather see judo stay upright. I'd rather see judo maintain its identity as the martial art of big throws. Like, I just think that should continue to be our identity. And the more we start, you know, trying to bring back leg grabs and start trying to bring back this and bring back that and blah blah blah, like, I don't know. And I know I'm the minority in that. I know everybody else wants to see him come back, but I don't.
I feel like the federation have more control of judo, and they're able to joystick it better to suit their own needs. And if you follow the money, there's probably some reason it's meaning a lot more dollars and cents for some people in the higher ranks of judo. But in jiu-jitsu, the trends change based on what's working. Like Gordon Ryan could be changing jiu-jitsu somewhere because he's winning some a certain way, and then you could have like a Mickey Mechi who's like a leg entanglement guy. The practitioners tend to set what's in vogue for jiu-jitsu, but everything in judo is more regulated and has to go through the stringent board, and it doesn't, you know what I mean? Like jiu-jitsu is very free flowing. It's more evolved through the pioneers of doing it. It doesn't have a federation. You know what I mean? There's no like governing body for jiu-jitsu. So it's kind of like whatever's in vogue on that month. There's trends. You can look 6 months ahead. But judo is more fits in a box. You know what I mean? And I think that they're trying to make it a little bit more like jiu-jitsu, and I don't think that's a good thing.
Well, yeah, they got, I mean, now they
I
have
agree.
now they have the Kosen judo. There's actually a tournament going on right now in Pennsylvania, in Harrisburg, it's called Kosen judo, which is, it has a whole set of different rules that I'm not really familiar with, but it's a little bit different. I would imagine it's more Newaza driven because they're getting good time, I'm assuming, right? So it's, you know, that's they're trying that type of thing, right? So what's up with that?
Well, I mean, that's nothing. I mean, I don't think that's anything too new. Like, I know, like, because I competed, you know, my AAU national championship that I love to talk about. You know, you know, you know, when I competed in AAU nationals, you know, they allow leg grabs. You know, that's technically considered like the freestyle judo rules. But you know what was funny about it? Nobody did them. Nobody did them. No, because here's the thing: if you're competing in AAU judo, you know, and you're, you know, traveling halfway across the country to go do this tournament, well, guess what? You're probably also competing in other judo tournaments too. And guess what? All those other judo tournaments are going to be USA Judo, which are under the umbrella of the IJF, and it's going to be their rules. So nobody really does leg grabs anyway, you know, at least in a lot of these tournaments. And I bet you if you go to that Kosen Judo tournament, there might be some leg grabs. There's probably going to be a few. But I bet most of them are going to be like guys who are BJJ guys that went into that tournament.
Absolutely.
You know,
100%.
I bet the pure judo guys aren't going to be the ones grabbing legs, but I bet you have some BJJ guys that say, "Oh, it's judo, but with the extended ground game. I'll give that a shot." They'll be the ones grabbing legs, not the judo guys.
Oh yeah, well the one guy from our club, he was like, he had a whole plan. He's like, he goes, I'm gonna drag him to the mat, and I'm gonna armbar him with my jujitsu. Like that was his. He has no intention to doing any stand up judo whatsoever.
Right.
Really?
Yeah. It was like I'm doing this aside, this sacrifice aside he has, and then I'm going straight to the mat, and I'm gonna choke him out. I was like,
do you think if they were to make like a leg grab or a single or a double leg in judo just an advantage, not points, it would allow it to happen, but it doesn't give it enough steam for you to want to take a chance to get an advantage. You know what I mean? Like if you sort of lessen the scoring of it, could it be involved without being something that ruins it completely and not give it as much weight in the point system?
I just don't think so. Especially not at like the higher levels. I mean, Dave will tell you when you watch like Olympic judo, when you're watching worlds, when you're watching, I mean, that doesn't even necessarily have to be that high. You can be watching, you know, USA nationals. You know, these matches sometimes come down to a Shido. You know what I mean? They come down to, you know, just one gripping infringement. So I mean, even if it's just an advantage, you know, getting like an ankle pick or a single or something like that, even if it's just an advantage, that very, very easily can be the difference between you winning or losing. And again, anytime you're in that situation where, you know, getting your legs snatched up can cost you the match, there's no way around it. These guys are going to put their hips back. They're going to squat like I would, you know. And it's just like I competed in sports sambo. And if anybody's familiar with sports sambo, not combat sambo, like, you know, Fedor and Khabib, like there's no punches and kicks in this. It's more similar to judo, but there are leg grabs and leg locks as well. If anybody's ever curious, if you want to see what judo would look like with leg grabs, go watch a FIAS. That's the governing body of judo. Go watch, or sambo. Go watch a FIAS sambo tournament, and you just don't see the big throws. They squat real low. You just don't see big throws. I mean, the guy will hit an Uchimata, but the guy's already, you know, 4 inches off the ground, so he basically just hits them, you know. And you know, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. If that's, you know, if that's your thing, you know, I mean, I love Sambo too. I competed in it. I have a national medal in that too. You know, those guys are tough as nails, man. I mean, I went
Yeah.
up against some, yeah, I want to get some tough Eastern Bloc dudes, man. And I'm telling you, I mean, they're tough. So I'm not dogging Sambo, but that's just not what I want judo to be.
Yeah. I agree. I feel like judo needs to be, I think it needs to be kept traditional, and it becomes a choice of whether you want to be traditional or not. And I think that allowing the wrestlers to come in is definitely a way to open up a floodgate for more revenue, sure, but it's going to kill the overall. It's going to kill the overall. Like, is it a tactic right now to bring a lot of guys in and then they'll retweak it again once they got a little bit more revenue going through the sport? Maybe, you know, it could be like a catch net, but I just don't see how in the long run, you know, inviting a bunch of wrestlers, I mean, they come in and do judo. I just feel like it does change the dynamic of the sport. And judo is just such a beautiful sport when you see a guy grabbing and just getting tossed in the air. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
you know,
And like, and it's just like, the other thing is too, is like judo, yes, in the US, yes, judo needs help in terms of growing the numbers. It does.
yes,
But in the rest of the world, dude, it's not even close. Like judo is more popular than wrestling. It's more
that's right.
popular than
Yeah.
BJJ.
Yep.
It's like one of the most popular, I think, like, what is it in the Olympics? Like somewhere around like 160, 170 countries like
Wow.
compete in it. And like and just to put that in perspective, what is it for like freestyle wrestling? Which freestyle wrestling is very popular.
Yeah.
But like, what is it? It's like 50 or 60 countries compete in
Yeah.
freestyle wrestling compared to
Yeah.
like almost 170 in judo. So like, I just don't understand why why we have to be the ones that are like, well, let's just do this so we can appease the wrestlers. Let's just do this so BJJ guys will show up. And again, maybe that's just an American thing, you know, because like American judo is hurting, unfortunately. So maybe that's just an American thing, but like, I don't think guys in France or Japan or Russia are sitting here saying, well, let's change the rules so we can get more wrestlers and BJJ guys to show up. If anything, it might be the opposite. You know, those, you know what I mean? Those other martial arts might be like, hey, how can we get judo guys interested in us? Because they seem to be doing something right over there. But for whatever reason, American judo isn't popular. So that's just where maybe I think that maybe this like pandering kind of attitude comes from in the West, or well, not necessarily the West, but like specifically America. But yeah, I still don't like it, man. Like I just love the fact that like judo has like a very very unique identity, and I think getting rid of the tachiwaza leg grabs, I think really solidified judo's identity as the throwing art. Like I said, like I could watch someone in a street fight, and if they're a judo practitioner, I'm going to know it because judo has that much of a distinct identity to it.
Mhm.
You know, the movements and the techniques are so distinct. Whereas, like, if somebody was an MMA fighter or a combat sambo fighter, would you necessarily know that in a street fight? Like, would you be able to tell the difference if somebody was an MMA fighter or a combat sambo fighter? Is there really a difference? Like, would you really know?
Yeah. You'd be wondering, he does he either does this or this.
Yeah, exactly. Or yeah, would
Yeah,
you even know? Yeah,
because he'll be
yeah.
punching you.
Hmm.
Well, and that's what I mean. That's the thing. If he was like an MMA fighter or a combat sambo fighter, would you like? You'd probably know he had training, but you wouldn't know in what. Like, you wouldn't know like what specific thing. You know, it's just like I said. It's just I don't know. Maybe some people like the idea of being a jack of all trades, master of none, and other people like the idea, like myself, like the idea of just being a specialist. And maybe I'm going off the rails here because we were just talking about reintroducing leg grabs to some capacity. So maybe I'm going way off the rails there. Some people will think I am, but like I just think that the closer we get to getting judo away from, you know, its identity as the throwing art, when we get away from that, which I'm sorry, introducing leg grabs would, it is going to force the match into a lower position. Which will diminish the ability to have those big throws.
Brian, I don't think anybody it would disagree with that.
Yeah.
I think it did change the game. We know what judo looks like with leg grabs.
Mhm.
We know what it looks like. We understand that that you're looking at throwing you're throwing differently, you're fighting differently, you're defending differently because you can, your legs can be grabbed, you can be lifted. There's certain things that you have to be able to pay attention to and defend against, and you're going to, it's going to look differently, and it did look differently. So yeah, so I think that's absolutely, I don't think that's hard to argue that it wouldn't change the game back to the way it was at some level. I just think, if looking at this and saying, okay, well, how do we want this sport to look? If we change it, it's going to look differently. That's just the bottom line. I think that's hard to argue. But I tell you what, it's been great. We're coming down to the last minute of our podcast. I really appreciate having Samuel Dodds here and Brian Butler as my guest. Great conversation, guys. Really appreciate you coming on. It was really super interesting. Comments, put them in the section below, and see where the leg grabs take us.